Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Two Doors podcast. I am here with Dan Harper. Dan is a seasoned technology leader with over 2 decades of experience at the intersection of people, technology, and innovation. He believes that empowering talented teams with creative freedom is the key to rapid innovation and customer-centric excellence. Throughout his career, Dan has held pivotal roles across software development, operations, consulting, and startups, leading initiatives at organizations such as REA Group, MYB, and Zero. Today, as the CTO at homes.com.au, he's helping make the process of buying or renting a home faster and less stressful. Beyond his executive responsibilities, Dan is deeply committed to nurturing relationships and talent within the tech community. He leads a dynamic leadership meetup where emerging tech leaders exchange insights and best practices, and he runs the career coaching business dedicated to guiding tech professionals towards unlocking their full potential. His multifaceted technical expertise spans product strategy, architecture, DevOps, and emerging technologies like AI and machine learning, making him a trusted advisor for organizations looking to thrive in a fast-paced digital landscape.
Thank you,
Welcome to the
Alex. That was
podcast,
pretty
Dan.
impressive, eh?
It is. And you've got a new record because no one's had AI mentioned in their bio.
There you
So
go. There you
you've
go.
got a new
Well, that
record
that
of
was.
intro.
Oh no, I think I added it at some point. I can't remember the time frame, but I was like, we are doing a bit of AI at homes, so I figure I'm definitely not as expert as some who are really into it because I'm doing other stuff as well, of course. But yeah, it's good to do it. It's been interesting to see how AI can help, but then also the hype and the disappointment and the a bit of a dopamine hit when it actually does work and it achieves something and can like help users and customers do things. All of that. It's pretty cool. It's exciting.
Yeah. I almost see it like the front end
Yeah.
revolution that we had when React came out. And everyone was like, oh, yeah, I want React. And it's like, well, are you building a social media platform that Facebook used that tool for? Or are
Yeah.
is there other use case? So, but no, I love that, Dan. And yeah, and obviously to everyone listening out there, they probably don't know our relationships that Dan runs an amazing meetup called Leadership of Awesome that I used to go to every month. It was almost you'd host at great places, and I'm very excited for this podcast because you're obviously a leader in this domain and you've facilitated other leaders and have really
Yeah.
helped
It's
me on that
it's
journey.
a passion. It kind of started with, I don't know, just sharing what I was doing day to day in my day job. And I kind of realized that this is like an industry wide thing, like a community thing. This is not just something that a small amount of people struggle with. It's like, how do you be a leader, become a leader, like gain those kind of skills, practice those kind of skills. It's a pretty common desire, I think, for a lot of people who want to grow and improve themselves. And so, yeah, it's been the meetup itself, amazing group of people, amazing community, people who are hungry to grow and learn and look at themselves and think, what does this mean for me? Like, how do I become something better of myself? And what does that mean? It's pretty awesome actually to be around a group of people, a part of that community where everyone's doing that. It's an incredible crew.
I used to love seeing each month it would be like,
Yeah,
oh, this person's just got this new lead role or this new person's got this leadership, and they'd been implemented everything that was being shared. And I would love to dig into your opinion of like what an emotionally
yeah,
healthy leader
emotional
looks
health.
like.
Yeah, I, it's probably a very deep topic, Alex. I think we could cover a lot of different things, but I think the first thing that comes to mind, let's just say that it might not be the most important. I'm just going to go with the first thing. I think I was reading something this morning actually online about great leaders who develop people that might not be in the best interest of the leader. So, but it's more in the best interest of the person that they're growing and leading. So, an example might be if somebody is a manager and you have someone in your team, and if you're growing them to be the best version of themselves, what's next for that person? Like you're there to help, lead and guide and mentor them and all those things, right? I think a emotional healthy state is kind of like you can be comfortable in your leadership skills, I guess, and comfortable in also solving problems that arise from having this kind of situation where you might grow somebody and they might leave your team or leave the business or leave, move to the next thing. It might be wildly different to what they're doing today. But I think a leader that's comfortable to be able to do that is a really good example because it means that you're really truly investing in people, without conditions, without like, oh, it's only if you're going to come and deliver for me that we're going to have this relationship where I'm going to put into you, right? I don't think that's, I mean, that's the way some people do it, probably.
No, I think that's an amazing point about
Yeah,
conditional and unconditional leadership, because we've all seen the bad end of the spectrum, right? Where it's like someone blows up and you're like, "What do you mean? We've invested in you for
yeah,
years. How dare you? Why would you do?" And it's like, but this person just got life-altering money. They're a parent, and that extra 20, 30
yeah,
grand is actually going to help them with school fees that year. So you're right. It's like you got to have the right
definitely,
heart and be in it
definitely.
for
And I
the
think,
right reason, don't you?
if you're someone who's inauthentic in that relationship on the leader side, people know, like it's interesting, looking back over my career and different teams, interactions, people that I've led. I kind of tell a joke sometimes that, particularly on the engineering side, right? So if you're an engineering leader, I find this quite subtle thing where engineers will test you. It's very subtle, but I think my theory is right that I think engineers want to know if I have a technical problem and I come to you, are you going to give me wise advice? Are you going to give me wisdom? Is it going to come from a place where you know what you're talking about, or do I go to someone else? You know, um, and usually, like in a larger team with other people around and things like that, there are other options. So it's not to say that an engineer has to have a technical leader that's their manager, direct manager, right? But I think they're seeking out those people, and I think software engineers are interesting people because they are generally in a culture where growth and learning and new things are always coming down the pipe. So it's just if you're not learning, you're kind of being left behind because the industry is moving forward. And I think engineers are very aware of that.
True.
So yeah, you kind of get tested. Do you know your stuff? If I come to you, are you going to be able to teach me the things I need to learn to grow in my career and my job, help me solve problems, that kind of thing? And yeah, I think people know if you're not authentic in that relationship from, I mean, I'm talking, that's examples from the technical side, but, in career development, coaching people one on ones, are you a trusted person I can come to with a problem? If I have a people problem, if I have a conflict problem, if I have, a problem with the company, HR, culture, someone else in the team, whatever it is, I think it's important that you are comfortable being authentic. And look, for me, I'm not the most like wear your heart on your sleeve kind of person, right? Like for sure. But I think I'm learning, and I think as well, I can say to people too, like I might not have my heart on my sleeve, right? But I am learning and growing just like I'm trying to encourage other people to do so as well. I think it's really important that that goes the same for me, But
Mm.
to be realistic about where you're at, but to kind of say, hey, I got a lot to learn.
I feel that you're the right kind of vulnerable because you're able to articulate, build that trust with the other people, lead via example. But then as you get tested by the software engineers, you're able to relate because what I found hard sometimes when you go into a team is when your leader can't know shows goes. They don't go and do it. They
Mm.
slightly know it, but they can't show you. And then it's just like, well, the respect is gone. So then, therefore, what is the relationship? Because, yeah, leadership can go a few ways. You could be like a therapist, sometimes a bit too much, but then you can be too militant of like, you need to do this objective. We're all emotional beings having an experience. So it's like you have to take that into to consult. And Yeah, I mean, switching gears in terms of technology as well, Dan, because we actually forgot to mention that you are a LinkedIn top voice on here. And I know that, it's great to follow you and see what's going on with the tech industry and tech environment. So, yeah, has there been any shifts lately or anything that
Good
you've
question.
seen?
Good question. I think there's a lot of, well, there has been a lot of instability in tech, and it's not just an AI thing, which everyone will point to and say, "Oh, hey, what's going on? Are we going to have jobs in the future?" Kind of question. That's a thing, but there's also been economic things. There's been, even, well, actually, one interesting thing is I reflect on this issue, and I don't know what the answer is yet. It's I read something yesterday actually about it as well. So I think the debate is kind of continuing. It's like if you have some people learning to code, junior level engineers just entering the industry or pretty early in their career, AI is such a big part. I think a lot of engineers have adopted it and are leveraging it. I've been getting a lot of success with it in the last few months, testing out some stuff, and I'm kind of happy with a bit of a workflow where I can introduce it into my daily work. But it's, I was mentoring a couple of junior engineers over the last 6 months, and to hear them talk about how they use it in their day-to-day work as they're learning and they're doing assignments, where they have to solve some problems and they're kind of using AI to help them. It's a little bit dangerous, I think, because I mean, it could just be old guys yelling at clouds and going,
Mm.
you know, like, oh, these youngsters, when I had to learn to code, I had to work through like 600-page books and carry them 10 of them in my backpack on to university or whatever every day. Um, it could be some factor of that, but at the same time, I think there is a lot of shortcut that happens or that AI allows you to take advantage of, and I don't know if that full shortcut is helpful to learn. Like part of the learning experience, I think, is failing,
Mm.
like trying something and failing. And all through like software engineering, when you're learning a lot of skills around tech and even around people skills and things like that, I think a really great learner teacher is to go, oh, yeah, I'm going to try something, and it might fail, and then I have to try something different. I have to try something else. I have to try to figure out and learn, sharpen problem solving skills, and go through that process. If AI just gives you the answer and you accept it as the answer and go, yeah, cool, solve my problem for me, um, I'm kind of like, wow, that's like a massive teacher advantage that you give up in that scenario. So even though you get the outcome and maybe you learn through other ways, I don't know, but I think it's still up in the air. But I don't know. I think it's an interesting challenge. It might be a real challenge for juniors coming into the industry.
What came to mind when you were sharing that, and I wholeheartedly agree, because people's judgment and their discernment isn't able to be there if they don't have the war wounds of, like we've had, where people quit your team and you're
Yep.
like, man, I invested in you, I did so, and you're just like, on to the next. Don't close your heart just to because you've been hurt. You've got to
Yep.
open your heart and let other people in and lead them. But what comes to mind there, Dan, is that when I was in primary school and we were doing our times table, I had a pencil holder that I could cheat. So I just span it round and it showed, the three, the four. So I didn't cheat on the second, but on the third and fourth times table, I just saw it. And then I was like, okay, I should learn my five. I should learn my six. And then on the seven and eight, I did it again. I learned my nine. But I tell you what, as a 33-year-old male, I can't do my three and four times table. That I've actually shortcutted myself. So I have to like, even though I've got a calculator, right? It's like, that discussion of where our teachers used to say, you won't always have a calculator on you. It's like, no, but it's
Yeah.
the way that you think about those problems. So yeah, it's great to use AI as a tool, but not depending on it that you've
Yeah.
not actually
Yeah.
learnt the
I
lessons.
guess it's still early stages, and I hope there's people researching this like legit. I'm not a researcher, so but I'm hoping there are smart people looking to do that, because one thing it reminds me of when you're describing your experience when I was in high school kind of years. I remember I don't even, maybe someone said this to me, I don't know, but I just, a few times when I really needed to bed something into my memory and really understand it, learn it, be able to recall stuff easily, I found that if I hand wrote things out, so even if I typed it out already or I'd already done the work or something like that, if I actually hand wrote something on paper, it kind of did something connection in my brain where I could recall that information a lot easier. And I don't know, maybe that's a similar thing, right? Like the shortcut part is, I don't know, it's great to get an outcome and you feel more productive, but I think it's the learning part. I think is might create some challenges.
I agree. I think Jim Quick calls it digital dementia. Like that,
Yeah,
we're so reliant on that digitization, and like we're hyper connected now. Like people don't have the BRB or TB on text messages or message. We're
yeah,
just always expected to be connected. So yeah, there's some great points, and switching gears, Dan. So obviously you've been in this 20 years, right? And you could tell us some of your first stories and how you got into tech and all of it. But yeah, have there been any wisdoms that you want to share with people as you've grown from a junior to a senior, and obviously lead and a powerful
yeah.
communicator?
Look, I'm going to keep harping on this position, I think, but I do understand that this is not a natural realm for technical people. I think particularly early in the career, maybe I see a lot of patterns of engineers kind of going, I just need to be good at tech stuff. Like I need to solve problems in the tech domain. That's my value. That's my worth. The better I am at that, then I get to senior and I get to advance my career and get to grow. But I would say that even getting to senior, I think a really important component, which I'll keep banging on about for forever, I think, is just the being able to not only just do tech, but even at the simplest level, to be able to talk technical topics to non-technical people. That's just the simplest example, I think, of you might be the smartest technical person in the world, in the room, in your team, but I think there's a particular skill where if you can actually communicate, relate with people, not just be in a technical realm, but be able to break out of that and connect it into other things. If it's like other people who have other ideas, if it's like around business leadership or commercial realities of what you're building or the context, wider context of what you're building. Sometimes when you're working on tech, well, these days anyway, it's usually not just you on your own. It's with a team. Maybe there's multiple teams, and being able to like communicate across teams, across with stakeholders, make them aware of like limitations or challenges, risks, things that kind of might put things at risk where what you try to achieve might not happen or might be at risk of not happening. I think being able to talk at that level is really important. And I think, I mean, I'm going to just go out there and say, if if you want to be a senior and above, you have to learn some of those skills. I don't think there's any way around it. But I think engineers early in their career do focus a lot on tech, which is maybe the right thing as well. Like, you've got to be good at your craft and solve problems with the tech tools. Uh, but I think, it's going to come at a certain point where people need to learn how to connect with people, how to communicate, how to express some of the things I talked about to really be able to make an impact, and be seen making an impact. I mean, that's the reality of it, right? People above you, leaders, executives, managers, they need to see you bringing value. And I don't know, the more senior people are able to step into that world, like step into the context of solving problems, not just in tech, but people problems, with team problems, business problems. I think it's important. Yeah.
I think it's crucial. Like the communication skills and the people skills that you're talking about. Thanks for sharing as well. That was brilliant. And like even when you were saying that, I was reflecting on my journey. Like when I first got into tech recruitment, I went to the meetups and I went hard. I had started learning how to program and I did all of this. And it's like, whoa, hang on. Like, so I went really deep technical so I could actually relate and understand. But I needed to learn my soft skills
Yep.
of actually asking great questions. And I feel that you've got great people skills, Dan. So, yeah, have you got like a top 3 book recommendation? Obviously, you're very well read, but if someone out there that wants to further that communication skill or people
Yeah,
skill, what
I
would you
have some
recommend?
old classics that I don't know whether they kind of never get old or they never kind of go out of date maybe. But some of the old stuff is fantastic. My So before I was in tech as a full time career, I was always into it when I was a kid, but I actually spent a couple of years in sales, or maybe three years in sales, and I was able to learn under some amazing salespeople. Like I remember going and trying to close a deal and talking to people, and sometimes there'd be, I can't remember the exact scenario. It was like, oh, I'm just not doing well, like I had a sales manager and stuff. And I remember he came with me one day and talked to this person, and I was just like floored by this person's skill. Like being able to talk with this person, solve problems with them, ultimately sell them the deal, but incredible skills. And I think sometimes, like in the tech world, we kind of look at people in like sales and marketing and go, oh, that's the other world, the other part that I don't want to have anything to do with. But there is so much that can be learned from sales as a skill and a practice, where you can borrow a lot of the concepts and understand like how people work, understand how people respond to different types of communication. Um, One of the greatest books I've ever read has been by Tom Hopkins, who I think it's like How to Master the Art of Selling, something like that. And it's a very US focused book. So there's a lot of kind of US style culture things in there. But if you just look behind that and look at the practices and some of the ways that he breaks down why things work and, things to do and why you do them, that's like incredibly important, I think. And practicing that, seeing it work, understanding how that works is like an incredible help. And I think there's plenty of books on these days. Actually, there's a lot of great books on negotiation, on communicating with people. How to Win Friends and Influence People is also like a really good one. There's so many that you can just get into. And actually, one book I read recently, which was about how to do custom interviews. I think it was somebody by, what did they do? It'll come to me. Like, I think it was Mixpanel or something like that, one of the analytics firms. And she was in charge of building customer research, development, and that kind of thing. It was kind of a really fascinating way to look at, you think about technology and building a product. And from the engineering side, you just think about kind of stacking blocks upon each other and solving these technical problems and having this software work, right? She's like talking about first principles, I guess, which is like, how you even start to talk to people who might be a customer and how you engage with them. What kind of things do you engage with them on? Because there's so many ways to mess it up. Actually, it's a really good book to read. I can't remember the author, unfortunately, but it's a really good book to read if you. A lot of engineers are thinking about doing side hustles, startups, and that kind of thing. Like, oh, I want to build a product to do X, Y, Z. It's really fascinating to understand how people work, and you have to start with people first. If you just start with the tech first, you'll be having a solution looking for a problem, which is probably going to fail. So yeah, there's a lot of gotchas in that world. If engineers are thinking of going down that world, I think you really do have to understand people and customers and really start there. So yeah, some really important stuff I think people can learn from.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Like I've heard of one
Right.
book, I've
Yep.
not read it yet, called The Mom Test. A guy, Gregor,
Yep.
we had on the show, he speaks about that and saying like, yeah, your mum will always say that's a great product, but will everyone else say it's a great product? So, and how to win friends is crucial. Like I
No.
learned, people don't want to hear you complain. Like, but you got to remember people's names, and anyone who says they don't like sales,
Yep.
if they have a
Yep.
partner, they've done sales. They've sold them the life that they need, and so I think sales gets a bad rap from like sleazy kind of, you see some people in industries
Yep.
that are just, it's very transactional, weird. Whereas I see it as, if you know the product you're selling and it's a great product, then you're just transforming, like if it's worth it,
Yeah.
if it's
That
actually worth that
that
person
that
using. So
stereotype
yeah, and
is real, but they're all the bad salespeople. Like if you know that you've been sold, you've probably
yeah,
been dealing with a bad salesperson. A great salesperson doesn't operate like that at all. And they're kind of more of like a partner in solving the problem with you, right? Because the reason why you need to buy a product or a service is to solve a problem. And so a salesperson that can work with that, which is the same thing, I think the same principles when you're in a team as an engineer and it's like, we have a problem to solve as a team, as a wider group of people within the company, everyone together pulling in the same direction. It's the same kind of foundation, I think. And people who can do it effectively and bring people on that journey, engage with people and help them solve problems and do all that kind of stuff, it makes great salespeople, great engineers. I think there's so much to be learnt from that.
Yeah, I agree. And bringing this into land dance, so any parting wisdoms, anything you want to share, like, or any overcomings that you'd want to like share with people that are listening to this?
Yeah, I think I think it's interesting. Maybe I'll talk a bit about the um, let's talk about the threat of AI in people's jobs, right? Probably a good one to land on. I think that there's been so many examples across history, right, where technology takes away jobs, right? And there's been a lot of examples of that over the years. Industrial Revolution, if you want to go back there, printing press. I'm sure, blacksmiths would love to still be around, but no longer here, right? So much technology replaces a lot of jobs, and it could well be that we do end up there where software engineers, or we don't need as many software engineers, right? I don't know. I think one of the things, though, to probably focus on is not so much the threat of AI or shift or change in that space. I think it's better to look,
Yeah.
I can solve problems. And actually, engineers generally are some of the best problem solvers that I've ever worked with, from any walk of life, any other industry. They're incredible problem solvers. And I think there's a lot of skills that you learn in engineering to be able to solve problems. It's like a daily practice. It gets very, very sharp. But those problems don't have to be solved just in the context of what you're doing today, right? There's plenty of other ways that you can apply some of those skills. Plenty of, who knows what things might look like in the future. But I think if you're looking at probably those fundamental skills, so if you're looking to be a great problem solver, looking to be great at kind of working with people, looking to be great at looking at insights and how to connect dots together, like in the context you're in now, might be connecting technical dots with business dots, for example. But someone who's able to do those kinds of skills, they're, even in whatever you're doing, I think to be able to operate like that, you're going to be vastly better at what you're doing, much more valuable, make a much bigger impact. And I guess engineers actually have one of the best advantages in something that's changing fast, because, like I said before, you're in the industry. If you're in the industry, things are moving fast. Learning and continuous learning is kind of a big part of the job and the career. So just keep learning stuff. Like, learn how to build machine learning models. If the industry is going that way, be the person who can make the awesomest AI models. Learn how it works, learn the stuff behind the scenes, how things are put together, why things do what they do. I think looking at it that way is probably a really great thing to do. Don't get stuck on things are going to change. I've spoken to people that are like, "Oh, I'm throwing in the towel because AI is going to take the jobs," And I think, nah, there's so much that will be achieved in the future. Like AI, where it is now, there could be something coming down the pipe that's the next big thing that might change everything all over again. Maybe that's 20 years away. I don't know. But hey, let's be there for the next big thing as well. Let's flow with where it's going and still make an impact and still be valuable and flex with it. So
Yeah, it's how you solve these real world problems and keep progressing. And on your point, I also want to share from a branding point of view. Like, I interview many people, right? And one of my pet peeves is when I say, "Hey, what are your strengths?" Like, if you're the go-to man for what is
yeah,
it, and people just say, "I'm a problem solver." I think it's great to be a problem solver, but
yep,
explain in what way. I'm a great problem solver at knowing the business domain and then putting forward suggestions so we're solving problems before they're even made. Or I'm a great problem solver, especially with machine learning, that I do this. I'm a great problem solver at
yep,
creating reusable components on the front end. Like, you've got to know your niche and know what your
absolutely. I
unique
reckon
selling point is
uh,
as well.
I've had that conversation with quite a few engineers, because I'm doing the coaching business now, and a lot of engineers have that issue where they will write things on their resume or talk to a recruiter or a hiring manager and just say kind of generic things. But unfortunately, it doesn't set them apart from 300 other candidates, you know, and people do have passions and interests. And so I think it's just, I am kind of thinking about doing a branding kind of course thing just to help engineers understand how that works. That stuff is already in people, what you're interested in, what you're passionate about, how you express what you're into, how you express those problem solving skills. There is certain ways that people do things that separate them from others, and being able to kind of pick that apart and understand it, yeah, I think it's massively valuable. It's a great sales technique, you know, like when you're talking to a recruiter or in an interview, that's sales. You're there selling yourself. So
Correct. It's brilliant. Well, thank you very much. I think that's a great place to
all
finish
good.
on,
Thanks,
Dan.
Alex.
So thank you very much for your time.